The abdication of the Kaiser before the end of the First World War. So, the abdication of the Kaiser before the end of World War I was something really that the government and the generals had really been pushing for. On the 9th of November, they asked if the Kaiser would meet with them, and the Kaiser didn't want to abdicate, he didn't want to have to give up his throne, but he was really pressured into it. So on the 9th of November, what happened was he decided to abdicate, and then on the 10th of November he fled to neutral Holland. Now obviously he would stay there for a number of years after the First World War, but the problem with the Kaiser abdicating was he had to do it because he totally lost control of his country. But also the bigger issue in terms of this is now there was a power vacuum at the top of Germany. So there was nobody really in control of it. The government had to try and take control, but that was never massively successful, and people didn't really take them particularly seriously. So just at the end of the war, that was almost the final nail in the coffin for Germany. And then what happened on the 11th of November 1918 was they then had to sign the armistice. So the German generals had to sign an armistice with France and obviously with the Allies to ensure that the fighting came to an end. The armistice. So it was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month when the armistice came into being. And so that we're absolutely clear about this, an armistice is a ceasefire. That's what it is. It's not a peace treaty, it's a ceasefire. So the German generals turned up to Compiègne in France, where General Foch was waiting in his train car, and they put in front of the Germans something they had to sign in order for the fighting to stop. So it was actually signed at 5 AM Paris time, and it was to come into effect at 12 noon Paris time. Remember, obviously they're an hour ahead of us, so that's why it's 12 over there. Now, what surprised the Germans is, although they realised there needed to be a ceasefire, when they started to read the armistice, there was lots of terms and conditions in there that they hadn't really expected to see. So it gave them 2 weeks to get out of France and Belgium completely, a month to be able to go from where the Rhine River was, so they obviously were told they had to get out of there as well. They had to hand over 25,000 artillery guns. All of the navy was meant to be handed over to the Allies, and also it said any prisoners that had been taken from Britain and France or any of the Allies needed to be given back. So really there was a list of demands that they had to meet on there, and obviously this isn't really what they were expecting to read on a ceasefire, and this is the thing that formed what happened with the peace treaty in the Treaty of Versailles when it got to June 1919. The blockade. So, the blockade of the German ports was something that was a major reason why the Allies managed to win the First World War. After the Battle of Jutland, which there'll be another podcast about, and obviously you're welcome to have a look at that, our ships had chased the German ships back to port, and then our ships had basically sat in the waters around their ports to try and keep the German Navy in port for the rest of the war. And actually in the long term this worked unbelievably well. For the simple reason what happened was the Germans were unable to get back out of port for the next 2 years of war. So the Navy started to mutiny, they started to rebel, they were sick of just sitting there, not doing anything, not being able to help in the war effort. And when they were ordered to go out, when it got towards the end of 1918, they refused because they were like, why would we? It'd be like a suicide mission because we're just going to get annihilated by all of these British ships. And the blockade also had another important factor to it, possibly the most important factor. It didn't allow ships with supplies to get into the German ports. So what you started to find happening is people in Germany were completely and utterly malnourished because they couldn't get enough supplies in. So more people died of influenza during 1918 than had died at the Western Front during that year. That is massively, massively important, and you really do need to remember about that, because that meant that the morale at home was completely damaged in Germany, and people really wanted an end to this war. Some of them were starving. There certainly wasn't anything like, sort of meat and potatoes and things that they were getting. And also, you need to mention that because they were so malnourished, it meant that things like the flu was an absolute killer, and it killed hundreds of thousands of people at home during the last year of the First World War.